Welcome to the Chosen Change podcast. I'm Josh. Today we don't got a Rob, but we got a special guest, my boy Stev.
How's it going, guys? Good to see you guys.
Nice to see you, man. It's been probably about a couple of years since
It's been a few. It's been a while. Rec basketball days.
Yeah,
playing little rec leagues.
Yeah. It's dang, that was a long time ago.
Yep.
I mean, anything you want to start open with? Anything you gotta
open up with? Oh gosh, I suppose an introduction, right? So that not everybody knows me as Stev.
Yeah, no, I guess not.
Josh and I go way back, so there's that. So my name is Estevan Lucero, born and raised here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I own a training facility called Transcend. Me and my partner Adrian linked up. We started our business October 2024. Outside of that, I don't know, homegrown, I suppose. Went to Valley High School, graduated. Everybody wants to know like my backstory, my character arc, I guess. Maybe not everybody, but some people. Right? This gives you more context. I played football in high school and in college, professionally for a short period of time. Got into strength conditioning because I'm not super tall or super athletic, but that's where I was able to set myself apart. And started coaching high school football when I got out of college. Decided I like to do this stuff a little bit more, lifting weights, running fast, all that kind of stuff, and realized there's a whole lot more to this field of expertise than I originally thought.
Yeah.
And from there, I guess in line with the podcast, I'll be able to change some lives. So that's the long and short of it.
I mean, just from the outside looking in, I know you've definitely had an impact and a footprint on not only I would want to say kids, the high school kids, but you know, there's definitely some people out there that you've impacted, or just really, because I feel like when it comes to fitness, you still have to put in the work. Like people give you the game plan, and here, this is what you eat, this is how you do it. But that person still has to go home and go do that work, you know?
Oh, 100%. And it's funny too, your biggest supporters are usually the people farthest from you. Mm-hmm. And some folks who are in your immediate circle, surprisingly so, they're the ones that give you the most of the hard time, or they give you the hardest time.
Yeah,
it's kind of, this is a tongue-in-cheek joke, and it's also kind of funny because I have an interplay with my brothers, and it's so funny because my brother Alejandro the other day, I guess, there's two brothers, one Alejandro and Andres, and I'm gonna tell this story because I think it's hilarious. And so my brother Andres is hanging out with his friends, right? And they're going, so man, so what's Steph doing, man? He's lost a bunch of weight. What's he doing? Just so to give you guys an idea, I've lost about 70, almost 80 pounds this last year. Last December, I competed in a 308 class for powerlifting, and this year I'm hovering around 235. I'll be down a little bit more here pretty soon. But anyway, my brother Andres is hanging out with his buddies. He's a police officer, and they're like, what is he doing? You know, and Andres goes, well, he's just cleaning up his diet and, you know, acting right. You know, he's just trying to get his life together. And my brother Alejandro was with him, and he goes, yeah, he's always epicked out. It's like, come on, man. Come on. And that's kind of our relationship in a nutshell. But I mean, there's a part of me that's like, Ali, why don't you take some Ozempic then, man? If it's that easy.
From the outside looking in, though, right? Like, it's always like it would be easier to just assume that. Rather than to understand the hard work that you put in and the discipline. Well, one thing I can say about your social media that I really like, I admire, I guess, is one, you show how to still be a fat boy.
Oh yeah.
But be like a clean eating the fat boy. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like,
there's an ebb and flow. There's a balance.
Yeah. But also I think, what's helped me out, and I tried to be better, like reaching out, like, hey man, like, thank you for that. Yeah. Is you're like, just because you fell off the wagon today doesn't mean you have to continue to ride the ride.
100%.
Be gracious with yourself today.
Yeah.
And tomorrow's a new day. And for me, like, that was probably my biggest thing. I do good for 2 weeks and then I fall off the wagon.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, screw it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'll just continue to ride it. And then literally that got me where I'm at today. So
yeah, it's one of those things where, and just clarify, no Ozempic was harmed in the making of this physique. I had a lot of sleep for dinner, and plenty of nights where I was plenty hungry and I thought about going to the cabinet. I didn't. But yeah, you know, you're totally right. I think the hardest part of this process has been becoming accustomed with the fact that it's not going to happen overnight, which everybody should know, like intrinsically you should know, but being more familiar and comfortable with the journey itself. And you're right, having grace. So there are plenty of times where I've fallen off the wagon or I've been stagnant, right? You were talking about it just a second ago. Mm-hmm. You spend 2 weeks at a certain standstill with your body weight, and you're going, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
And in recognizing the fact that you took 30 years to gain this weight, like, let's make no mistake, you're not going to lose it in 2 months, 3 months.
For sure.
You know, I've even heard said, as long as it took you to gain the weight, expect it to take at least half of that time to lose it. You know, in my instance, I suppose it's been a little less time than that, but
Yeah, just a little.
nonetheless, yeah, I know there have been plenty of ups and downs, you know, and you have to be okay with the fact that there's going to be life events. There's going to be birthday parties. There's going to be celebrations. There's going to be times where you just don't feel like doing it. And you're given 60% of, or 100% of the 60% that you have that day. But so long as you stick to it, then things kind of work themselves out.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. People who are so feast or famine, all in or all out, we're so poor in moderation. And I think that's been the key to my success and plenty of the people that I work with. And it's funny because that's something that I push on a consistent basis. Exactly that. Just be consistent. And yet doing it yourself, putting your money where your mouth is, it can be a little more challenging.
Yeah, no, it definitely can. Like I said, like just from just a little bit of the outside looked in, like just to see like those small little things you do put out there, I'm like, okay, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not alone. But I think it's also, I don't want to say fitness has like a bad rap.
Yeah.
But it's more like, if everyone I've kind of seen is like, nope, you have to eat clean all the time. You have to do this. Yeah. And so you've kind of gone back against the grain and have been like, hey, this is like, you know what I mean? Like, if you do, this is how you do it. Like, I don't, and again, I don't follow many people that, you know, like, but, you know, you definitely like, hey, like, this is how you get back on. So,
Yeah.
I just want to say I appreciate that. And it definitely hit me at one point. I was like, all right.
That means a lot, man. You'd be surprised, and this is funny. I've been more open about losing weight. How many people our age have reached out to me, and it's funny because again, these are people that I haven't talked to in years, maybe a brief acquaintance, things like that. And they're like, I saw you, and you have inspired me to change. And kind of again, once again in the theme, they've chosen to change for a specific reason, for a specific purpose, whether they're getting in shape for their own health and they're worried about things like that are serious, diabetes, heart disease down the road, or they have kids, or they would like to have kids, or they would just like to live a more fulfilled life, or they saw somebody close to them, you know, succumb to some dramatic illness, right? Yeah. So they're just trying to get their life together.
Or even just the motivation, like me, you know, like, I mean, Kev, like I told you, Kev was my biggest inspiration to get a bike, to do stuff, like just to be religious about it, not non-negotiables.
Yeah.
And then I think for me, I took it pretty serious. And then when I deep dove, probably this year, my dad landed up in the hospital and he got diagnosed with congested heart failure.
Oh man.
And so just to see him where he's at, you know, I'm like, yeah, that just means I got to help myself now. And, you know, I'm sitting here scolding him about salt and intake, you know, this and that. And then I had lunch with my sister the next day after, and I'm sitting there putting on the salt, and I'm like halfway through, I'm like, dang, like, you know what I mean? Like, how much is that salt right now going to cost me later on down the road? Well, there's just being like cognizant of your decisions now, you know?
Well, and if it gives you any, solace, salt usually isn't the culprit. You know, salt's actually got a ton to do with like regulation of blood pressure, obviously hydration. Like salt actually gets a really, really bad rap. I think salt is often stigmatized because it's a distractive tool, at least from, I don't know, the way that we view health and nutrition from maybe the main issue. You know, the main issue more often than not is refined carbohydrates, you know, heavy fat. Like think of go to McDonald's, for instance, right? Yeah. You can't get out of there with the Big Mac that's less than like 1,000 calories. So, right, and that's the real problem, right? Listen, I'm talking about this salt. So figure that out.
Backstory to that, so my dad, right, after that, they told me, you know, if you don't change your life, you got anywhere from a year to 5 years to live, you know? And he was like, whoa. And then he was like, hey, and I called him, I was like, hey, do you need anything? He was like, right, a couple days after, bring me a Big Mac. Yeah, but they told him you can only have 1,800 milligrams of sodium a day.
Yeah. Like, well, he's in a different place. Yeah. We're not talking about normal.
Yeah. And everything, you know what I mean? And so he's like, I really want a Big Mac. And I was like, so I looked it up. Dude, it was 1,300 milligrams of sodium. Yeah. Not alone. But it comes from the most thing that I didn't think it was going to come from is the cheese.
Yeah.
The cheese has the most sodium in it.
It's high in preservative.
And so he can only have Swiss cheese. That's the best cheese for him. And so I was like, all right. So we literally went to his cabinet. He threw out all the all the process, because it's all the processed foods we eat. You know what I mean? Everything grew up on. He was like, spam, can I have spam? Can I have bologna? Can I have, you know, potatoes and hot dogs? And they've no hot dogs. No.
We got to chill.
Yeah. So, but seeing him willing, yeah, he's willing to change, right?
Yeah.
But seeing him change like that, unfortunately, the circumstance happened.
Yeah.
But it was almost inspiring. And it was like, all right, well, if he can do it, I can do it, you know? And,
it sounds like it wasn't almost. It sounds like it was. Yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I've been, you know, a lot better at what, again, waking up at 4:00 in the morning to go walk 6 miles is not ideal.
Yeah, no task.
But now, you know, we're 3 months into it, and it's almost just like clockwork. I just wake up part of the day, strap on the shoes, and
so we've
been in the rain, we've been in the snow, we've been in everything, and just life don't stop, you know? So I guess let's get a little bit into your story. So one thing that stuck out for me from your introduction is you had to, at some point in high school or college, you had to be very self-aware of yourself. I'm not the biggest, I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not the fastest, but I can be the strongest. So that's probably you've been very self-aware. And that was probably like kind of like a little bit of your first moment to change, or chosen change moment, where you're like, okay, I have to hone in on this in order if I really want to play football.
Yeah.
So what was that moment like?
Oh man. So yeah, I suppose you're right. Intrinsically, I've always been pretty self-aware. I've done, I don't know if you guys ever have a chance to, but this is actually a fun experiment. Do the Big Five personality assessment by Jordan Peterson. And that's where I was able to, I guess maybe it was an actualization or maybe a realization of like, hey man, you've known this about yourself all the time. This is just kind of a confirmation. But nonetheless, yeah, I've always been pretty self-aware. And self-aware in a variety of areas, whether it's good from right from wrong, or good from bad, right from wrong, or even just my plight in life, like where I was kind of headed. And I think the first marker for me was goal setting of, okay, well, what do you want to do with your life? Where do you want to go from here? And yeah, when I was real young, maybe I didn't have career goals set out. But yeah, what was neat is my dad was a pretty good football player. And so I always kind of aspired to be something like that. And I said, well, if I have any of the tools that he has, and I don't know if you ever met my pops, but he's humongous.
I'm not a giant human being.
I played with your brother. Yeah. So I was like, well, if I'm going to grow up to be anything like that, then maybe I'll be all right. And then I was in about 8th grade and I topped out, right? So I've been this size for a long time now. I was one of those Hispanic dudes who was I was an early groomer. Then I capped out. So, all right, well, I got some tools out of this. I got a decent little frame, and I started to think, okay, if I'm going to make this college thing a reality, probably most importantly, I gravitated to the idea that I need to get my school paid for somehow. All right, and then beyond that, we'll figure it out. But that was the first marker. And so I figured, all right, if I'm not going to be super duper tall, then I better be super strong and have some athletic ability and really hone my craft. So yeah, absolutely. Now I will say I wasn't a perfect student in high school by any means. None of us were. Well, maybe some of you nerds were.
No, not me.
But I did do enough to earn a scholarship. And probably most importantly along that journey, I think it's funny. I go back and forth on this piece of my character, my persona, is I was a little bit reclusive in high school in some ways. One, because I was a little bit of a nerd. Yeah. So I had my nerdy friends. I'm not joking. Like 9th grade, I used to go play Yu-Gi-Oh! In the cafeteria kind of thing. Like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. But then I also had the athletic side of things, right? I had all the football boys, right? That was like, had some prowess. So you wrestled too, right? And I wrestled too. Okay. And so I had this little dichotomy of like, where do I fit, you know? And then in deciding that I wanted to play college football, it almost gave me an out to go be a nerd and be alone and be by myself. And I used to sit on this holier than thou mantle that I'm like too good to go out and party. And I'm too good to, and I think part of that was me being maybe just a little more, what do I want to say? Recluse is one, but introverted, I suppose. Yeah. And so that allowed me to instead of say I was introverted, no, I'm just more focused than everybody else, right? So I avoided the party scene and I just hung out and did my thing.
Do you also think, because just for me on the outside looking in, I don't know your whole life, but to me, you kind of seem like you're an all-in guy.
Yeah.
So if you were like, you think you subconsciously knew, like, if I go party, I'm all in partying.
Oh, without a doubt. This is a superpower, and there's also a super Achilles heel.
Yeah.
Is I'm obsessive. That's probably my main thing. Is like I can't do a little bit of something. I got to do everything. I can't lift a couple of weights. I got to lift all the weights. I can't have a Big Mac if I'm gonna have several, and I'm gonna enjoy all of them, and I'm gonna out eat all you guys while you do it. I just can't. There's just a part of me. And again, it's been a superpower when I direct it and I got it in the right things, and it's been something that's often torn me apart too. So
no, I'm definitely the same way.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, now I mean it's transitioning over to health and stuff like that, which is great. Like, and I think once you just hang around with certain people, and that's kind of like this is the standard, you know what I mean, and everyone holds you accountable to that, and I don't feel like for a long time I didn't have anyone that held me accountable, like physically. You know what I mean? Like, hey, like, how come you're not getting up, going to the gym? What happened to you today? You know what I mean? Well, that's a crappy excuse, and I'm like, dang, that was a crappy excuse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, all right, I got to take that one. But at the same time, it all comes from like a good place, and I feel like sometimes that's a little bit harder to differentiate. So. I'm definitely like you, where I'm like all in.
Yeah.
And so I was all in on chips and
Yeah.
and bread for a while.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that when it comes to like going all in. So I think just being self-aware for sure. You're like, yeah, no, I can't. You can't go this route. Yeah. So college happens.
Yeah.
Kind of. What did you college? You feel like you could have went?
So
further, or
I played it. Well, I think I went as far as I could until the wheels fell off. So I'm one of those guys. I think in my eyes, I have a thimbleful of talent and as much hard work as you can afford. And I think that carried me about as far as I could go. Played in the Mexican Military Institute, and then got a scholarship after that to Fort Lewis College up in Durango, and did as much as I could with the tools that I had. I thought I was a decent football player. I don't know if my teammates or coaches would say so, but I'm hopefully they would agree.
Yeah.
But that, it's so funny because the more often I reflect on that, the farther it feels away. At this point, it's like 13 years ago.
Yeah.
More. And so it just feels so distant. It was like a lifetime ago. But yeah, I think that certainly set a foreground for where I am today. Obviously a different person, different time in my life. I have different goals and aspirations. But yeah. College was a great experience, and played with Gladiators and then with the Stars for a set period of time. Enjoyed that. Funny about that is the football experience with both of those arena teams was super serious. Was the absolute real deal.
Good.
Like qualified athletes, like guys who had a cup of coffee in the NFL, if not some kind of career there. And it was just it was eye opening to say the least. To be honest, yeah, it was a good time. I really enjoyed that. But I will say, what was cool about that experience more than anything else is when I played arena football, going back to the accountability and somebody around you to kind of push you, I found that I grew the most when I wasn't being told necessarily what to do or being held accountable to a certain, like, let's just say schedule. So in college, everything is so regimented for you. You wake up, you go to film, you go to practice, you go to class, you go to practice, then you come back, you go to film, and then you eat in between, right? When I got out of that, it was like, oh shoot, it was like being without a parachute. Like, where do I go? What do I do now? And I felt like I actually became a better football player because I had to figure things out. I had to problem solve a little bit more so. And I think that was one thing that I wasn't familiar with, as I'm sure a lot of college athletes fall into this. It's like, once you don't have somebody telling you where to go and where to be, it's like, well, what now? And I think that was a really unique and neat experience in terms of self-discovery, not just in terms of like football, but also just as a person.
Yeah.
I did so much growing, probably from, I would say even 25 all the way to about 28, where I think I really matured as a person. And of course, my frontal lobe probably matured a little bit more so too. Yeah. So yeah.
No, I could definitely see that. And I'm a very big person on, like, especially with my kids, like I tend to let my kids problem solve.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to just be that dad that just jumps right in. Oh, this is how you do it. You know what I mean? Like, no, you go figure it out. You know what I mean? If you need my help,
yeah,
I'll put in my expertise. But I just feel like real life experiences and real life hardships, they create that character, and they build that character inside you that no one can take away from you.
Sure.
Because if someone gives you something all the time, then the moment they stop giving it to you, and like you're like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
I mean, so I feel like that's such an, I mean, I think just from playing sports, that's such a huge thing because, you know what I mean? Like, there ain't no one else out there. You know what I mean? It's just
100%.
you, like, especially like wrestling. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's such an individualized.
Oh, God.
It's you and that person on that mat, and you know what I mean?
Figure it out.
Yeah, you got to figure it out. And then I landed up like this, but you got to figure it out. So, I definitely see how, you know, that small stuff can translate.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also probably the foundation that you built
Yeah.
as a kid being in sports, you know what I mean, everything. Because someone that doesn't have that foundation is definitely like a challenge. You know what I mean? But you can be self-aware and you're already kind of seasoned in that. You're like, okay, well, I know this is, you know what I mean, X, Y, and Z kind of gets me here. And then I can also do my own thing because now I'm not being, you know, hovered on and watched from binoculars. So, well, so after college, you got into coaching, right?
Yeah.
So did you go back to Valley?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. It's all right. That's funny in and of itself. So I graduated from college and moved back here. And again, in the whole self-discovery thing, the most eye-opening thing was coming back here to Albuquerque after I'd been removed, probably 5 years, right? I had left for school in 2007 and I didn't return until 2013. And it was so interesting how life had progressed, right? Like so many of my friends had taken up jobs. They already had, you know, spouses, some of them, you know, they're just busy, you know? And so there was probably a good 6 months where I graduated from college and I didn't know what to do. What do I do with my time? Like everybody's busy, you know, it's just a lot of the day. It's just me hanging out at my mom's house going, all right, I better look for some jobs, I guess. And so we're doing, I wish I had planned that better. In fact, I often talk about this. I wish that there was more of a halfway house for college athletes because so many of them don't know what to do now. It's like, do I go work at a gas station? What do I do with my time? You know, and fortunately, you know, my parents obviously opened their doors and I got a chance to like, okay, we'll figure things out, I suppose. But there was a good 6 month span there where I was like, all right, well, I don't know that I necessarily planned for this. So what do I know? Well, obviously football at this point, and how can I somewhat give back or use these tools? And it started with coaching, right? I just stumbled into the office at Valley, and it's the last place I thought I would be. I walk in the Valley. It's funny because I often make this joke. I'm like, man, Valley is such a small community. It's like once you're out, it always pulls you back in a sense. It's like being in a gang. And I actually had some... I had some frustration with that because I always felt like the Valley was a little stagnant in some ways, right? Like there's certainly a status quo there.
Valley and Rio Grande are definitely. Yeah, I went to both, so I didn't see it. But
I was a little averse to that culture. I really was. I had a hard time because like I had always aspired for a little more. I always wanted to do more with my life. And I just remember walking in and going, man, well, maybe we can pioneer something that's a little bit better than what I grew up in. And so anyway, get on board with Damien and Marcelli and Kevin. And we had a pretty good football team. So that was nice to walk into. Made me feel like a good coach my first year, my freshman outing. Yeah, we were pretty good. And caught on as a teacher, right? And so I taught for 4 years, as a matter of fact, post-college. And teaching was a great time. I loved working with the kids. I started to recognize my passion there. Kids were awesome. Now, the program that I worked in, so my undergrad is actually abnormal psych and sports psych. And so I got in with special ed, which teachers out there are going to laugh because they're going to say, of course you were, you're a football coach. That's what all football coaches do. All you idiots, you teach special ed or ECAB. So anyway, got in, taught special ed, and I was in a pretty intensive program. They call it the BIP at the time, and I had some kids with some serious behaviors. And fortunately, I'd read about it in the DSM, so I'd never actually experienced it. So these kids had a, dissociative disorder, bipolar to some extent, what is it called? Attachment disorders of all kinds. We had kids with intellectual disabilities, you name it. It was like the whole gamut, right? A lot of them really explosive. Some of them marginally violent.
Yeah.
When I say marginally, I'm gently using that term. And that was a great time. Now, what I will say is while I was teaching, enjoyed the environment, enjoyed the, some of the staff, all that kind of stuff. But I did notice the fact that I didn't love necessarily the teaching part of it. It wasn't my calling, right? And that's really what got me into strength conditioning in the first place. I was coaching football, number one, so I enjoyed that part of it, but I was already kind of palate fatigue out from football. I'd done that for a long time. Well, what's next? Taught, and then I started to figure out, well, I don't want to be one of those teachers that just does their 20 years and gets out. That would feel like not like I'm wasting my time. Yeah, there are plenty of people who do it, and hats off to them. I just wasn't that guy. Like, look at me. I couldn't survive in a desk job. There's no way. Like, I looked like Mr. Incredible. Like, that really does not have a good time. And so I figured, okay, well, again, going back to there, what are things that I'm energetic, enthusiastic about, and excited to do, and learning more about strength conditioning. While I was preparing for arena football, I actually I started preparing at a sports performance facility, and I got exposure to different methodologies, different concepts, things I wasn't familiar with, and we got a layer deeper into performance. When I say performance, that's the composite of strength, conditioning, speed, power, production, endurance, all the whole gamut, right? Even PT to some extent. And I started to see all the layers that came away from just like back and bis, chest and tries, everything that everybody's usually familiar with.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is kind of exciting. And the reason I find it so exciting is because, your body is very plastic, just as your brain is, right? So if you do something well enough, long enough, you adapt, right? And you would be, I think you would be astounded by some of the change that your body can make that you didn't realize you could. Like the ceiling that you often place upon yourself is, it's a glass ceiling.
Really, yeah.
Yeah. And even doing it now to this day in the high school setting, there are kids that we have who excel athletically that you would have ruled out on any other team in any other circumstance. And if they didn't have access to some tools.
Yeah.
And so that's been really cool, and that's been really nourishing. And so you get to experience some of those victories. I think that's what excited me.
Yeah, probably cool just to like, I guess you help the younger self and see that their limit and their expectations they have in their own mind are so shallow.
Yeah.
And I just think like that just instills one confidence.
Yeah.
But also to like a belief within their self. You know what I mean? And I could definitely see why that's definitely fulfilling. I mean, I don't probably wouldn't be me, but
yeah, man. That's the exact attitude that I think that I try to erase, because I think that it could be anybody. Because I walked around, I was 300 plus pounds for decades, right? Like literal decades. And I don't think that there's any reason you couldn't change. You couldn't be different. You couldn't add more. Like, and the same thing's true. You say that to a freshman in high school who's $140. You never know how that kid's going to mature. You never know what his genetics are. Yeah, you tell him like, okay, that's fine, man. You got a frame on you. We'll figure it out. We'll make it happen. We'll figure it out.
On the very middle, yeah. So after that was the moment where you're just like, this is it. This is what I want to do. Or was there still some kind of going back and forth? And
so what I will say, I say this often, probably more in the last 6 months than I care to admit. I think that there's something intrinsically inside of me that wishes to be useful, to serve purpose, 100% to serve.
100%.
And I wouldn't say that in any way I'm the leader. I'm more the chariot. I'm the person who's going to ferry people across the river. Like, I'm going to be the person that shows them, all right, here's the door. Here are the keys. This is how you're going to get this done. I think I've always kind of carried a little bit of that for whatever reason. And I think that's probably even inspired me from a variety of things, right? Like what my parents instilled in me when I was young, and always looking out for others, always being considerate, always being compassionate, always being mindful. Those are probably things that I observed. In every football team I was ever part of, I was always a captain, and some heat to my own horn by any means, but I felt like it was super important that we included everybody, like making it a point to make sure that all the linemen sat together and we didn't lose anybody in fall camp. We didn't have anybody wash out. And so I've always kind of carried that in some way. And I think that even if I wasn't doing strength conditioning, I would probably be doing something along these lines. I don't know where it would be. Who knows? It could be selling medical devices. I have no idea.
Yeah.
All right. It could be something, but I think that my purpose is more so to be in service of others and to show them, that they are capable, right? That they can aspire for more.
And I think that's really falls in line with this podcast, right? Where it's showing others that it's okay to fail. It's okay to, feel a certain type of way or to go through your seasons. We all go through a season, right? And just know, one, you're not alone, but two, like there is help. And I think, again, like we talked a little bit off camera where I had that moment, and Rob as a friend, he told me like, you look lost.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what? Like,
maybe I am.
yeah, I was, yeah. you know, and then he offered he offered me to go to church with him. And I was like, yeah, maybe, we'll see. And then just that whole time, I was like, man, like, if he can see it, I just wonder who else can see it. Like, my wife can see it, my kids can see it.
They can see my cards.
Yeah, and I'm just like, yeah, maybe, you know what I mean? And that moment, I went to church faithfully for about 4 months. And then he's like, we should do a podcast. And I was like, yeah.
Great.
And then kind of 3 months went by. He mentioned again, came up with the name. And then 3 months went by again. And then he was like, we should do a podcast. And I was like, yeah, we should. And then he texted me one day, hey, I booked us a studio. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he was like, no, like, we're going to get back. Like, people need to hear stories. People need inspiration. People need to, you know what I mean? So I definitely do feel what you're saying. And that's definitely been like one of my calling is just to use my past experiences. And, I mean, a lot of people don't know a lot of people's story, right? Like, people aren't always comfortable telling their story.
Yeah.
But 9 times, and a lot of times I feel like in life, we feel like we walk alone.
Yeah.
But if we would just be able to be vulnerable, especially as men, like, if you're able to be vulnerable and talk about just a little bit of your struggles, you understand that probably 6 out of 10 guys are actually going through some things. They're going through just whatever it is at that moment. So
yeah.
I used to think being vulnerable was weak.
Yeah.
And then I realized how courageous it takes. And I'm like, man, that's probably the strongest thing I ever did was be vulnerable. Yeah. Like, because you don't know which way it's going to go.
Yeah. It's hard to open up, right?
It is.
Let people see the truth. Listen.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, you don't cry, or you don't do this, you don't do that. Like, you're like, all right, yeah. And so I think it's definitely, and I'm sure you've had a band of people that pushed you outside of your family. Yeah. Or that you were able to open up with, be honest with. And those are probably some of the conversations that really pushed you to be the person you can be. Would you say that that's kind of
all through and through? You know, it's one of those. So I've become accustomed to this fact that the older you get, the more you start to recognize that life exists in the gray. It really does. You know, I know so many people who get really ho-hum, holier than thou. I'm better than so-and-so, because of this and this and this moral transgression. But you start to recognize, like, life is complex. Everybody's going through something different in their own variety of it, right? I have plenty of friends who have dealt with everything from infidelity to, suicidal ideation, friends who have gone through really traumatic experiences, whether they witness a family member die in front of them, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
And then you start to examine all the things and circumstances that led up to that moment. And you start to get a grasp on, like, how much everybody's really hurting in some small way, right? And that you can't rule those things out and just say that, somebody made a bad decision and because of that, they're cast out for life. Again, to your point, everybody can create change, and everybody comes from different walks of life, and it's never our place to judge them for going through those things or for those experiences or being a certain way. Just more you often than not, and this has been my experience even as a coach, is that you have to come at it from a place of understanding. And saying is true for me. There are plenty of times where I've come to friends, just begging for an outlet. Hey man, do you have sec? Like, can we just chat for a sec? I'm going through it. And whether it's relationships, whether it's, business, whether it's something traumatic that had happened, maybe it's a falling out, a whole variety of those things. And I think one of the neatest things about coaching, I'm starting to recognize this too. In coaching, I don't know that every time we get together, it's always about X's and O's. More often than not, it's just about fellowship and hanging out and being around the guys and feeling comfortable. And yeah, we talk ball, but we also talk a bunch of other things. We also talk about, hey man, tell me about this happened to you. Oh, you had a miscarriage, or you had, this go on in your life and you're really struggling with it. Just tell me, talk to me about it. I'm not going to try to problem solve it for you either.
Yeah, no, but just
if you want to get it out, yeah, just let me know. And if you do want to work through it, yeah, I'll give you some advice. Mm-hmm. But really my goal with anybody that I work with or anybody that I'm around is more asking questions like, how are you doing, man? Just tell me, like, how are you doing? Then I think that opens up some doors, and you'd be amazed, even in my coaching profession, how many people are willing to just open up. All right, you would be astounded how many folks come to me and Yeah, and it's funny because like we get into the surface level reason for somebody staying in front of me inside of my gym, and it's got nothing to do with what actually they've said to me, right? Like let's say they want to lose weight. I can't tell you how many men and women have cried in front of me because their spouse doesn't look at them the same, right? Or they're worried that they're going to suffer like a stroke or something crazy because it runs in their family and they're worried that that could happen to them. Or maybe they can't even keep up with their kids.
Yeah.
Right. And those are real life circumstances that got nothing to do with weight loss. You know, I have plenty of kids who come to me, or even parents on behalf of their kids who it's not that their kid wants to get faster, that they want their kid to get faster. It's that they want their kid to have confidence and have a place, not just on the team, but in their social network, in their social circle. There are so many kids that, yeah, they're the 7-play players, right? You remember those guys in Yaffle? Yeah. And, you know, I know their parents are having their heartstrings pulled because they stand up in front of me and they're like, it's not just because my son needs to be faster. It's also because once he is, that means that he might have playing time. And once he has playing time, then his teammates will see him differently. Mm-hmm. Once his teammates see him differently, then he might be invited to somebody's birthday party. And that's worth the price of admission. Well, so I get to see some of those things.
That's crazy. Yeah. And I think, I mean, but also like, I mean, as a coach, I would imagine there's some kids out there. And like, I mean, I know I was probably one of them. Where like you kind of just wanted someone to be like, you okay, man?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I'm sure you have some kids that just flood open to you. And they're like, oh, this at home or this at school or this and that. So I think just to be that, how to say it? Just that crack of that door open for them. Like, I think that's huge. I think you're doing more than what you probably anticipate on doing without really doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I sure emphasize. No, I'm telling you, like, because I wish I had a coach like that. And I mean, I had some great coaches, you know, like I had coaches that taught me, you know, push through some stuff and do this, do that, you know, but no one really was like, hey kid, are you okay? You know what I mean? Like, so I can imagine just that one kid that's going through it and they're like, man, coach, you know? So,
I think a big part of the coaching practice is we always talk about the art of buying in or the art of buy-in. And a big part of buy-in is the coalition you develop with the athletes and even the people that you work with. You know, coaching as a profession used to largely be like a one-way street, right? Like, this is what you do, kid. This is where you line up. This is how you execute. It's so much less that now in the sense that, you know, times have changed, number one. You have to be adaptable to those things. And I think that you create a higher level of buy-in just by being intrinsically in tune with people around you, right? And you do notice if you spend enough time with the kids, whether it's warm-ups or whatever little time that you have, these micro interactions, you get a feel of the energy, right? It's not something you can see, you can taste, or touch, but you certainly can feel it, right? When you walk around a certain kid, his presence is a little bit different. And you're going, you're a little quiet today. What's going on there? Like, talk to me. What's your deal? You seem a little more adversarial than usual, or you seem a little bit off.
You're acting out today.
Yeah, what's up, man? Just talk to me. It's not a big deal. It's funny because a lot of the kids, they assume that you're mad. I'm like, I'll tell them right out of the gate, like, I'm not mad at you. Don't worry. Like, it's isn't me going to get pissed at you. Like, how dare you expose your emotions? Don't cry in front of me again, kid. But
that's how it was.
No kidding, right? Yeah, exactly. Sit there and eat your hot dog.
I mean, whenever we were in school and we were playing, you know what I mean? Like that's how it was. Like,
yeah,
no goof or off or no this or, you know what I mean? Like, it was just, but now, like, to even see my kids, like, probably when I first had my kids, I was very big on the, well, this is my house. If you don't like it, you get out, you know, or because I said so, you know. Now I'm not saying I don't have the final say so because I do have I mean, ultimately it's my house, you know, but I do ask my kids, well, what are your thoughts about it? What are, you know what I mean? Like, how does this situation make you feel? Like, whenever we moved to Rio Rancho, like, you know what I mean? Like, do you want to stay here? You want to stay in South Valley? Like, you know, what you want to do? Ultimately, it was mine and my wife's decision to stay or go, because we wanted to go to Arizona. That's where we were. And then we just kind of, you know what I mean? Did a check-in with everyone. Hey, how does everyone feel? This. And some kids were like, yeah. Some kids were no. And I asked why. But, you know, like, those were things I didn't get the opportunity to do it. Like I just got drugged along everywhere.
Yeah, so what are doing?
Hey, this is where you're at. This is shut up.
Make some new friends.
It's literally. So I definitely think the times have changed. I think what a lot of us is some of us millennials and older, whatever generation it was before or younger.
Yeah.
They're starting to understand, like, you know what I mean? Like, or they feel or they see, hey, this is how it was when I was a kid. Like, I just wonder what these kids are going through. So,
yeah. Well, I think that it's funny. I hear this sentiment all the time that the kids are soft. I don't think the kids are necessarily soft or that they've changed that much. I think we have a responsibility, or at least becoming more aware of the responsibility to do the service of explanation, right? To give context, to give understanding, right? Like even when I put together a program for somebody, I'm going, okay, this and this and this are why we're doing these things. This is why it is important. And I think with that level of understanding, again, it goes back to the whole buy-in thing. It makes the program itself more useful. It creates more utility. It creates more value. It creates more adherence. It's all those things. And I think when you get people to buy in, and it's no different than the workplace. Like I think that those are probably skills that largely benefit plenty of businesses in the workplace. I think that even in where I stand, we have 7 coaches on staff, and we take communal votes on certain things. Now there are certain directions that we have to lean the business into that we're like a non-negotiable. This is our practice and service going forward. This is what we're doing.
that's what we're doing.
But here's also why, right? And then there are plenty of opportunities where we go, all right, everybody has their own say so. We're going to sit around the round table and say, all right, what is your perspective on this? Or what do you think you bring to the table? What do you think we should do differently? You know, because I think so too, I often ask the kids that I work with, you know, what is, just like you did, what is your perspective or position on this specific topic? Or what is your perspective or position on their circumstance? Because they get to look at it with a fresh set of eyes, and they may bring forth an idea that I never thought of. And I think that's pretty useful.
Yeah. I was there to pay a little around it. Could you imagine how many great ideas, like from inventors that were suppressed?
Yeah.
Because they were just told, nope. And yeah, this is
Get out of my office.
yeah. Like how much further could we have been in this society if it was just explanation, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or understanding. And I think that's definitely huge. And I mean, just to even, but like you said, like, but that's probably why you guys try to evolve as much as possible, because you listen.
Yeah.
And not only, I feel like a lot of people get stagnant because, well, we didn't keep up with the times. Okay, but why? Like, I mean, like, I get it, times change. And, you know, it's not everyone's fault, or it's not only your fault, but if you probably listened, you know, it probably, you would probably still be rolling with, you know what I mean? So I definitely think being able to adapt, understand, and then really overcome, right?
Yeah.
And figure it out as a collective is definitely huge.
Yeah. I think that you're dead in the water if you stop evolving, if you stop, trying to, I wouldn't say innovate, but just be aware of, all right, or constantly evaluative of your practices and the way that you behave. So in business, for sure, our business specifically, you know, we're trying to pioneer speed, for instance, right? Because for so long, people just believe that you were born with what you were born with, and you could get no better from there. You're as fast as you were ever going to be.
Unless you're Adrian Baca.
Unless you're Adrian Baca, and then he has no ceiling, right? But I think it's true in coaching, right? If you start to stagnate, well, then of course the game leaves you. The game leaves you behind. It's passed you by.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a familiarity and a comfort thing. And I think that is largely brought on by the fact that as people age, they start to mature and they start to realize, okay, I like this, this, and this. And everybody's met that old person, like somebody who's 4 years older than I am, who has decided this is what I like and this is what I don't like. All right. And you plant your flag over certain things that probably you don't need to like plant your flag over, or like be really stern about. Right. And I think in coaching, it can be like that because there's an undesired uncomfort with evolving, right? Like there's some uncomfortability that comes with evolving, right? Like it's hard to look yourself in the mirror and say that I've been doing it wrong or backwards for the last 5 years, you know? Well, I missed the boat there. It's really hard to do that.
It is. No, it is.
Or even be told that you
self-accountability you have to take in those moments and be like, to swallow your ego and be like, yeah, I was wrong.
Yeah, nobody like, yeah. Dude, I do that all the time. I'm like, God, that was stupid. I shouldn't have done that. That was a super dumb mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that, especially in, we'll leave it on the performance side of things. You know, one major role that I have is injury reduction, right? As a strength conditioning coach at La Cueva and, of course, of Volcano Vista for the softball team. I want to keep kids on the field and as available as much as possible. And so to doing, you have to start to unweave that mindset that used to say like more is better, right? Like for a long time, and I'll use football as an example. People used to practice 2-a-days. I'll give you an example there. All right, do you remember 2-a-days? Some days it would be 3 days, right? Just depending on how coach felt, right? And it was all about grinding you and making sure that you were tough and you were gritty and you whatever. And you're like, yeah, exactly. All that stuff. The fourth quarter, right? Yeah. You're up early. You have this 2-hour padded practice. You come back. You have another 2-hour padded practice. And in the last decade, that's changed in large part. And for a bunch of reasons. And a bunch of reasons that people don't always critically think about. Okay, well, why were 2-a-days invented in the first place? Well, 2-a-days were invented in the first place because in the 80s, a lot of your players at the college and professional level had jobs in the offseason. They were like steel workers and they had all these blue collar labor jobs, right? And you didn't have them all year. So they needed some time to like really sharpen their skills and learn the plays and like have install. Well, nowadays we have the kids year round. So you get to fall camp and your kids don't know the plays. The chances are you've not done your due diligence. It's some of those things like, I don't know, maybe chalk talk once a week. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then the next thing too is they actually did need that to get in shape to some degree, right? Like you get it. It was physically prepared. Yeah, they're busy. They were doing stuff, right? They go work on the farm, whatever. And nowadays, again, the strength conditioning coach, I have them year round, so they shouldn't fall that far out of shape.
Yeah, definitely. You had some slide backs.
Yeah,
nothing too crazy.
And then probably finally, when you get to 2-a-days, okay, let's pretend that you do institute that. What kind of stress and fatigue are you going to incur there that you're never going to be able to get back over the course of a season? You're going to go out and you're going to practice for 4 hours over the course of the day. Well, when's your bye week? Week 8. Well, when are you going to make up that lost ground? When are your kids going to feel refreshed? When are you guys going to get back on the field and feel like invigorated? If anything, you just grind those kids in the ground, and things that are stressed often break.
When it's crunch time, your kids are already depleted.
Exactly, right? And so instead, and this is like totally against the grain, how about we keep our kids as fresh as possible? It's insane. Let's keep practices to 90 minutes at most. I strength train the kids this season twice a week for 30 minutes-ish. We do the speed work on the front end of practice. And we make sure that every time they come out to practice, they're looking forward to it. Or at least that's the ambition, right? Or we almost take away the one thing that they enjoy because we cut practice so short, right? Or we don't have that many live periods. So that way there's like an excitement about it. Like if we have a live period, it's like, let's go, yeah. But everybody's been that football player who's like dragging all the way out to practice. Like, here we go again. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to have that feeling, And it's so counterculture. But then again, critically thinking, well, why haven't we reinvestigated these practices in 40 years?
Well, it's all about those ideas, right? Someone that was like, what if we just cut back a little bit? Like, hey, so-and-so looks slow out there. What's going on?
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey looks slow. Well, if you don't give him the ball 200 times.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the Indiana coach just came out with the fact that they haven't, in spring, they didn't practice any more than 15 times. And in the fall for camp, they didn't practice any more than 25 times. Practices are kept to 90 minutes.
If you want, I'll get Kyle Shanahan's number and you can go tell him.
I'll let him know. Funny enough, this is crazy. You're a Raiders fan, right?
I'm a Niners fan.
You're a Niners fan. Well, right. Well, that's okay. I was going to say you're Raiders. I actually hung out with an NFL strength coach last summer, and he was talking about they had just had a changing of the guard. Who's the most recent Raiders coach before this current guy?
Antonio Pierce.
Antonio AP, right? And AP was a total contrast from the guy that they had prior. Who that guy was prior? I don't know.
From Gruden.
Was it Gruden? Was it Gruden? Okay, well, anyway, the strength coach alluded to the fact that like the dichotomy of the two training practices that they had was just so drastically different because the former head coach would grind the guys into the ground. They'd be out practicing. And you've been to Nevada, you know that in Nevada, heat's dry heat, crazy, right? So 120 degrees, and they got a 2-hour padded practice in the middle of summer. He's like, as a strength coach, again, people are looking at him for answers. For guys keep getting hurt, they're like, what the heck, man? And he's like, I don't know how to tell you guys. Yeah, you're not doing your job. And he's like, guys, I can't do anything about the fact that the coach gets mad and has them out practicing in the middle of the day. Like, we have an indoor facility right here. I don't know, maybe take them inside. There's little stuff like that, but it happens even at the highest level, right? Guys just are not willing to will back the fact that they could be wrong or reinvestigate their practices.
I could definitely see. And I think, I mean, again, that everything ties back into what we first talked about, right? Being self-aware and being able to really look at yourself and be like, hey, what changes can I make, and where, well, you know what I mean? Like, where, being just self-aware and where am I at? What do I need to do? Like, you know what I mean? And I know I've always been pretty self-aware, but as far as like fitness and, you know, like getting back in shape, I'm like, okay, well, I plateaued, but like, what changes can I make to myself that, you know what I mean? Like, what has to go? Like, what's holding me back from getting where I want to be?
Yeah.
And it's hard whenever you're not seeing the results, right? You're like, well, if I let that go and I'm still not getting the results, like, what the heck? You know what I mean? But once you start seeing like the scale go down, or not even the scale go down, but your pants aren't fitting you no more, you're like, oh, okay, like, here we go.
Well, cool. With some,
We'll cut out chips then. We'll cut out this. Yeah, we'll cut out that. But it's just getting that taste of, I guess, a win. You know what I mean? Like, and it's hard because it just doesn't happen. And then there's those days where you're grinding and you're like, this sucks. Like,
so I actually had a little bit of recipe that I've been using lately, and I have to give hats off to Matt Vincent. So I hired a business coach, and I suppose business coach would be the best way to describe it. His name is Matt Vincent. So Matt Vincent was a world champion Highlands game winner. He started the Not Dead Yet brand, and now he runs a program that I'm involved with called the Alchemist Accelerated Program. And alchemy is the act of, you know, back in the day, for like science and, you know, all that stuff, chemistry, alchemy, right? And everybody wanted to turn lead into gold, right? That was the whole premise of it. Like, how do we get this substance that is largely unusable into this substance is highly valuable? And that is the basis for this program that I'm a part of. How do you turn yourself from being X into Y? And it comes with incremental change. And so one of the things that he's imbued on me or allowed me to utilize is I actually have a vision board at home. And for anybody who's watching this, you can set one of these up too, because I think it's been incredibly helpful. So basically what I'll do is I'll take, you know, let's say it's a financial goal, let's say a physical goal, and let's say it's a mental, emotional, social goal, something like that. And these are macro goals. Like, what do I want the best outcome to be? Like, let's dream here. Let's make sure that this is huge. And let's go ahead and say, all right, let's write it on the board. And then underneath that, what are the micro goals that it would take to achieve that goal? So let's just say it's a business goal. Let's say that I want to do something crazy, like make $5 million a year, right? Which isn't that crazy, all things considered, but like, let's say that's a dream. Okay, now my micro goals were like, what are all the different things that it would take or we could lean into that would allow that to happen, right? And so I have all these things that reverse engineer this big goal, because I think the real problem is that people have these massive goals. I'm going to lose 100 pounds. Let's talk about the journey and the walk and the steps that are involved in getting there. And then from that, I have my dailies, my atomic goals, my smallest things, the atomic being like, small, yeah. And so every single day I'll write on the board, okay, what are going to be my small wins? What am I going to be able to look back on today and say, like, I moved the needle, right? Because you feed yourself that lie. You feed yourself that nonsense that I'm living the same day as Groundhog Day. I'm in that hamster wheel. It's not true. Like, stop telling yourself that.
No.
And it's true with weight loss, especially, right? So you have your little micro goals and you go, okay, one of my micro goals today is, like, let's just say drink half of my body weight in water, or in ounces of water. Okay, so 64 ounces, 84 ounces, whatever that looks like, 120 ounces, who cares? Okay, that's one of my goals. It's tiny, it's this big, all right? And then my next goal is, all right, how do I stay under my calories? Well, I'm going to track it. Okay, that's my next goal. And then maybe I'm going to hit a protein goal. I'm going to eat my body weight in grams of protein. Cool. And so every single day that I come home, I take a look at that board. I look at my macro goals, my micro goals, and everything I needed to accomplish that day. And I go, okay, which one of these did I tally off? And I take them and I put them over in a column I call evidence of progress. And this is, again, a tribute to Matt, because he's the one who invented some of this stuff. And then at the end of the month, I can look back and I have this board full of wins.
So tell these.
Yeah, of just all the way in, which added a grain of sand every single day. And it's been super helpful.
You forget about those small wins. It's just that one medium loss or that one thing you don't see, and it just derails everything. But if you have the evidence, if there's 100 tiny wins and only 2 medium losses, you're like, okay, well, I feel a little bit better. It's all about the psyche, right? It's all about tricking your mind. You know what I mean? I feel our minds are definitely like our the worst enemy of ours.
Oh, big time.
Terrible.
Well, and it's a great feeling too. Like, you know, my personal financial goals. So I have them color coded. So my evidence of progress have different colored post-it notes, and then my micro goals are different colors. When I get to move over one of the micro goals over, I'm like, oh shit, let's go over there. Let's go. So it's been cool. Yeah, I recommend anybody try that out. Now it's again consistency. You can't just look at the board, and you got to actually interact.
Yeah, you got to put in the work. You got to put in the work.
Yeah, but it's nice because it's analog. You can taste it, or not taste it. If you're not eating the post-it notes, but you're moving them. I might eat one every now. That's just, I'm gonna go full super bag.
What would you say? So now, I mean, we kind of got into, you know, your fitness, like what you do now.
Yeah,
got into, you know, you getting there. Mm-hmm. What would you say was your big chosen to change moment now as an adult that you really like?
Man, a couple of them, man. I think my daughter coming along has been a real big inspiration lately. So in my head, I've always rehearsed, you know, to aim up. Like that's kind of something that I've taken to. That's a Jordan Peterson thing, is you always want to be aiming up, aim toward the mountain, aim toward your goals. Like always, again, aim to have utility and be useful. Aim up in life, morality, spirituality, whatever. And with my daughter walking around, that has been probably one of the biggest reminders that I need to aim up. So my daughter, to give you guys, again, being vulnerable, kind of open myself up here a little bit. So me and my wife, we adopted my daughter. We're going on 3 years now. And she came by way of a pretty heinous circumstance. So my brother-in-law, him and his girlfriend, they would pick up his girlfriend's niece. All right, so this is kind of, I know it's a little bit hard to track here, but my brother-in-law's girlfriend's niece, they would pick her up every now and then from Vanessa's sister's house. All right, and Vanessa, they knew that she was kind of transient. She was in a bad way. They knew she might be involved in drugs. There were lots of CYFD reports, you know, about Kiara's mother and my daughter. And there was nothing they could really do about it. You know, CYFD, sometimes they're kind of handcuffed. Yeah. And it's hard in New Mexico to wrestle people away from their kids. So anyway, long story short, my brother-in-law and his girlfriend go and pick up my daughter, now Kiara, from the house that, you know, they're staying in, and nobody comes to the door. And my daughter's 6 at the time. Say knock, knock, knock. Nobody comes. And then finally Vanessa, my brother-in-law's girlfriend, opens the door to a total trap house. Right, 6-year-old in this trap house. There's just Kiara there. And it's as bad as you can imagine. There's contraband, there's paraphernalia, there's everything you can imagine that would be wrong with this house. Yeah. It's uninhabitable. It looks like a trap house, right? No food, no running water from what I understand, you know, just bad. And so Vanessa and my brother-in-law, Joe, like, there's no way. Like, you're not staying here. So they grab her up, bring her home, call APD, get awarded emergency custody. This is a bad situation, right? And so Kiara takes up residence with my mother-in-law. And it's funny because at first, hearing about this circumstance, you know, I was kind of averse to it. I'm like, because I'm hearing about it and it sounds to me like my brother-in-law just adopted this feral child. Yeah. And I'm like, what is going on at your guys' house? Like, there's always some crazy drama. Like, who is this kid now that you guys have? And you guys just had a newborn. Like, what are you guys doing, kind of thing? And then I hear the story and I hear the narrative, and my brother-in-law, absolute saint, he does the right thing. He gets Kiara to a doctor, to a dentist, because she's been around it. So her teeth are pretty jacked up. They get her into therapy. And poor thing, she even has to go through withdrawals in the first 2 weeks just from contact, right? Like, so it's bad. They get her enrolled in school for the first time. She'd never been to school, other than one day where this is super sad. So Kiara told us about a time where she went to school, and she knew that she had to ride the bus. So she knew she had to go catch the bus. She knew where to be. She didn't know what to grab because she knew she needed to eat at school. So she packed her own lunch, all right? And this is like a kid in kindergarten or preschool at the time. She literally just packs herself a potato.
Oh my God.
I know, right? It's super sad. Yeah, she's the only one with the wherewithal in this house that thinks like, I better have something. I need something. And then you have sustenance.
So you go to some sort of nutrition.
Yeah, something, right? So it's super sad, right? It was also a little bit funny when she's like, all I did was grab a potato. Yeah, she's a kid and she's out of the weeds now, right? Yeah. And so anyway, back then though, it's heartbreaking. Yeah. And so my brother-in-law gets her, you know, taken care of. She graduates kindergarten in like the last couple weeks of school. And over the course of the summer, you know, so me and my wife, we've been talking about having kids. We decided to wait for a variety of reasons. And at first I was like, I don't know, you know, what our next plan is. But nonetheless, we end up throwing a graduation party, and I get to meet Kara for the first time. And I meet this spunky little kid, man. And I absolutely fall in love with her. She is so witty, clever, and perceptive. And she's like quick on the draw. She's snappy with it. You can hear her sense of humor. Yeah. And I assume that's a part of her upbringing in a way, that she has some tools that she's had to discover about survival, you know? So she's pretty clever, and she's pretty smart, and she's all the things that I'm like, I kind of identify with this kid. This kid's a little jacked up, but me too. You know, me too, right here. You're looking at him. Yeah. I can rock with this. And so I kick it out to Nikayla, and I'm like, maybe what we can do is we can talk about, how about, what if we throw our hat in the ring? What if we adopt this little girl? Or what if we just help out however we can? She's on board. Yeah, she's on board, and I'm going, okay, well, why don't we do this for real then? Let's not just talk about like being around for her. How about we don't have any kids right now. We have the resources to do so. Maybe this is timing. Maybe this is God's plan, right? Because we didn't have any kids, and we were on the precipice of doing that anyway. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is what we were supposed to be doing. Maybe this is exactly where we're supposed to be anyway. And so we bring this little girl into our house. She stays with us for a week, 2 weeks, and then it's full blown. We get full custody, the whole nine. And still working through the process of adoption. That's been a process. Yeah, doing it in the States, no easy task. And she has absolutely thrived. She's above grade level in just about every subject. Loves STEM, loves everything you can imagine. She does wrestling now.
Nice.
She's she's great. And having that little girl walking around the house and knowing that I'm responsible for being who I say I am, has been good, little intrinsic motivator. Like, hey man,
no, it does.
This girl's gonna grow up and she's gonna know exactly who you are, and you want to make sure that that's the right thing, the right impression.
Yeah, you can make sure she's old enough. She looks at you and be like, yeah, that was my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So full circle moment for me. My story a little bit, right? My mom, she kind of had a house just like that, and I had 3 little sisters that would stay with her. And my dad's house, I mean, it always wasn't perfect, but you know, it was a good home. And every weekend, I was probably from about 7 to about 9, and I would go to my mom's house purposefully, even though it was riddled with needles and heroin everywhere, you know. And I used to clean up needles and foils off the bathroom and just bathe my sisters. At the time, they were like 4, 2, and then a newborn. And so at 9 years old, I had to grow up real quick, and I learned how to be a father, you know. And so to hear that, you know, what she's come from, and to know you guys have taken her out of that, that sits close to my heart, just because same thing kind of happened with my sisters. And I finally got the opportunity to tell my dad. Like, I never told my dad any of that. I never told my dad anything that happened. Like, hey, I'm going to my mom's house, and it's filled with needles, and you know, and I got to tell him that when he was in the hospital. And me and my dad finally had like a really, really big conversation. And we talked about my mom, and talked about me going to counseling. And he was like, son, I never knew your mom, like, not having your mom around to screwed you up that bad. And I'm like, well, yeah. And then, I mean, like, you had a woman, you had a mother that loved you. Like, yeah, I had a stepmom that was amazing. Yeah. But it wasn't like, it just, and I've told her this now, I'm an adult. Like, I appreciate everything you did for me. But it just wasn't like, it wasn't what I wanted. Like, you know, because I would get tastes from my mom sporadically. So to create that false hope, you know? Yeah. And so I feel like that was more worse than her just staying away. If she just stayed away, then, you know, cool. Yeah. But, you know, my dad was like, I thought like I was just enough for, like, I thought what I built was enough for you. And I'm like, I'm not saying it wasn't. Yeah. But like, you know, in your psyche, like there's someone out there that's supposed to love you, supposed to care for you, supposed to, you know what I mean? Right. Just be this person for you, and they're not. I say, oh no, like, it really tears you back. And then I got into the stories, and I got into picking up, you know, needles and all this stuff. And he was like, why didn't you tell me? And I was like, there's consequences behind that, you know, like, as a big brother, like, would you you just want to make sure your siblings are okay. You know what I mean? And nothing else matters. Me kicking heroin at 8, 9 years old, like, then I didn't know what I was like. I didn't know what I was doing. You know, I just thought I was sick.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, put yourself in your position as a big brother. Like, would you say something knowing that you couldn't go back and you couldn't make sure that those kids were okay? Yeah. And he was like, oh. And I was like, I mean, that's just because as a parent, I also know, like, I'm not letting you go back over there. I don't care what's going on. So, you know what I mean? So for me, it was just a little bit of a full circle moment to know that, you know, I mean, it's unfortunate that she went through that, and it's unfortunate she had to endure any of that. But just from, I mean, our little bit of a conversation, and everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
It may not always be the way we plan it out, and it may not always be the way that we have it in our mind, but I think once you like surrender and you give it to God, you know, he'll make all the things that don't make sense in the end.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with him more. And I would venture to guess the experience that you had in some way strengthened and fortified you.
Oh, for sure.
It comes out in your personality or your way of being now, or ways in which you protect and guide others, right? And so I think that there's always as much as there are dark-sided experiences, there are also light-sided traits that come from that. And that's something I've really tried to hang my hat on for every immoral doing that I've ever had or circumstance that I've ever been a part of that didn't shake out the right way. I've always looked toward, what can I gather from this? What can I learn from this? How can I benefit from this? You know, and I think too, even in teaching Kiara as she grows, my own transgressions or things that I've been a part of in life that I've experienced, I'll be able to imbue on her and pick her up when she's in some dark places too. You know, because I can reassure her that, don't worry, not everybody walks the path all the time. We fall off, and I've been there. You will too be there. Everyone goes through it, but just so you know, that's all right. It's more about where do you go from here?
How do we go?
The comeback story almost. It's like the story of resilience versus the story of like just to come up. I like the comeback story personally more than I like the heroes do necessarily.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that's why I try to be the father that I am today. And I try to, just be open with my kids. And a lot of people are like, God, you're very open with your kids. And
they're going to know either way.
They're going to figure out, or not only that, but they're going to do whatever they're going to do either way. Like, I might as well walk them through it whenever they fail. Like, there's been plenty of times where I'm like, yeah, that's what you want to do. In my mind, I'm fine. Yeah,
I know where this is going.
Exactly.
I'll run this tape.
But, I mean, as a parent, like my dad was like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, well, I'm going to do it anyways. Like, I don't give a shit.
And I'm going to do it more because you don't want me to do it.
For sure. No, yeah, I mean, I kind of wondered, you know, like, hey, I was like, been stuff up, you know, but now that I know, you know, that's definitely heartfelt, and that's amazing, and I appreciate you for being vulnerable.
Oh yeah.
And I think, I mean, just the next thing I would like to get to, probably the last thing we get into, is just what was that leap to take to open up your gym?
Oh man,
Of faith.
Shoot, that's a good question. So in strength conditioning, the path is non-linear, right? Like, it's not like working for a corporate job where there's always an opening, right? You're just waiting for your boss to vacate his position so you get to apply. Yeah. Right. It's not like that. Private sector is very different in that you kind of have to carve your own way. And so I've been doing strength conditioning in the area. Well, I can say this. I've been coaching people since 2009, and I officially vetched off to start doing S&C as an intern in 2013, and then eventually, you know, full-time coaching. And I think it was 2015 that I made the jump from teaching to, of course, doing that. And it was weird because it was like half in, half out at one point where I was teaching, and then I was also coaching. And I wanted to get to a point where I could do it all full send. And so I worked with one coach at one facility, got started there, built a book of business, moved over to another facility with a friend of mine, worked with a lot of MMA fighters, built a book of business there, helped them get on their feet in some ways, and helped the establishment get running, and then took my job at the field house, which is the most recent venture beyond the one that I'm in now. I was at the field house And for those of you guys who don't know, it's over there on Paseo and Jefferson. It's a big monolithic facility. It's like 70,000 square feet, volleyball, baseball, the whole 900 yards of turf. It's like this really, really audacious, outlandish. Yeah. Again, monolithic is the best way to describe it. Strength conditioning facilities like to give it like, it's almost like the Mecca, you know? And so I was there for 4 years, and I took the performance director job because that was, again, to me, what made the most sense in an upward trajectory, right? I'd been the coach, I'd been a head coach, and then now I'm an administrator. Yeah. And that was my first dwelling in business, right? So I got to understand the ins and outs of, of course, I had mentored coaches before, but now I had some that were subordinate to me in some way, and was able to build a staff and a curriculum and a training system and all the inner workings of that business from the ground up. And my boss, Scott Grady, at the time, he gave me this position and gave me some autonomy and just said, you know, you kind of build it. Now, it got to a place where I was thinking to myself, you know, inside of this industry, I need more creative license. I need to have less overreach. I need to be able to make decisions when it comes to marketing campaigns, when it comes to service, when it comes to pricing, any inner working of the business. Like I got to a place where I was thinking, you know, I have to be able to make these decisions suddenly, because in business, and I'm sure there are plenty of people who know this, it's not about who has the best ideas. It's about who acts fastest.
Yeah, I know, right? Who can capture that, that lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are some campaigns that you run and they don't work. And there are some campaigns you're like, we should have been doing this whole time. Right. So in any case, I was in this place where, you know, I was in negotiation with Scott about potentially buying out our space to the field house. And this is funny. Me and my partner, Adrian, now we were in negotiation for about 6 months, maybe 5-ish, January of 2024. All the way through about May, and all of a sudden the negotiations just come to like a screeching halt, right? We're going to like coffee every Wednesday morning kind of thing, us and our boss. And then out of nowhere, the business gets sold. It gets sold right from under us. And again, there are plenty of people who could tell the story a bunch of different ways, but this is just my position, my perspective. Yeah. Business gets sold, right? And so before I know it, we get sold to a competitor. Funny enough, this is actually the competitor that I interned with when I was first getting started. So I actually know these people, and fair play to them. They kept us around. They could have easily just cut that out the snake and let me go. Yeah. But they didn't. They were great. They wanted to onboard me and my staff and really treat us as one of their own and just make sure we were comfortable with their processes and systems and just their way of doing things. And they wanted to integrate us as much as they could. And me and my partner, Adrian, once it happened, of course, I had already had in my mind that I wanted to open and run my own business, right? Like in my mind, I knew that things needed to be done a certain way. I had to work. And disagree, agree or not, I just knew that that's how it had to be. And once the business got sold, I remember thinking to myself, like, this sucks. Now what? Like, I'm back at square one. I'm just a coach again. Like, they just want me to be on their staff. And I thought, man, maybe it's just time, and maybe it's just not, I'm not ready. Maybe this is, again, with God telling me, like, pump the brakes, man. You know, you're not ready for entrepreneurship. Maybe you're not ready for what you're asking for. Maybe this is him pulling a punch in some way, you know. Maybe I would have, maybe I'm wrong. Yeah,
maybe you are ready. Yeah, might kick out the door.
Well, and that's what it turned into, because I was there for about a month, and then I was thinking, you know what, Steve? What's going to happen? I ran the tape. I borrowed this from a painter that I listened to on a podcast not that long ago. I'm trying to remember his name, David Cho. He was saying in his mind, he runs the tape, right? So any circumstance that you come in contact with, play out how this scenario is going to go. So in your mind, play exactly what's going to happen, right? You can walk through it. You're pretty smart and logical enough. I ran the tape in my mind. I said, okay, if I hang out here for a year, more than likely, I'll continue to be just a coach. I'll continue to get paid just the same amount that I'm being paid right now. I will have had no upward trajectory. There's no real places in the business for me to land. This is a pretty flat company. And so then what? Then I'll spend a year here thinking, what if? And so me and my partner, Adrian, and this sounds so much like scheming, but we were just like, we can't stay here forever. There's just no way.
Yeah, no.
There's no way. And so we decided, you know what? Let's go for it. So we leased a space in August of 2024. We started the build out in our off hours, nights, weekends, everything from painting the ceiling to the walls to laying down the floor to buying all the inner workings, getting a shower installed, you name it, right? We're so busy bee, we see that, right? And We got all the way till about September. And then the business I was working with, they figured it out, which fair play to them. As word gets around, and that's what it is. And it's funny because I remember getting the text and getting notified like, hey, man, we're going to be meeting over here at the field house and not with the rest of the group. And I was like, damn, it's Black Wednesday. It's here. I knew this was coming.
Yeah, but all you do is tip your cap. I mean,
Yeah, we sat down. It was like the Spider-Man meme where like... And I was like, guys, I really appreciate you. Like, nothing against you guys. I like what you're doing here. This is just not my path. This is not where I'm going. Yes, if I had interned with you guys and got hired on, I probably would be with you today. But it's just not the direction I'm headed in.
Yeah.
I have to go try this out. I have to see what's there. And yeah, it was crazy because we had our meeting, our severance meeting on a Wednesday. Adrian and I had ordered equipment on that Tuesday, so the day before. The equipment had a lead time of a week. So in the time that we were waiting for the equipment, we got the flooring in. Flooring gets in. We finish scrubbing all the floors. We lay down on the flooring. The equipment arrives the next Tuesday. I'm training people by the next week. I have people in-house.
just lines up.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, everything lined up perfectly. It was like we didn't miss a single step. And again, my clients, they were phenomenal. I was like, hey, just so you guys know, this is what's going on. I'm not going to be at the field house anymore. I'm sorry for what may feel like deceit. You can't, in my industry, you really can't tell anybody that you're going in a different direction because that's the day you're done.
Yeah.
There's no 2 weeks. You don't get a 2 weeks.
It's just like sales. I took a job and they're like, all right, well,
is it?
What? I have those keys. Well, I'm trying to do the right thing.
Exactly. And my clients were phenomenal about it. So we really imported all of our books of business. I had a softball club that we partnered with previously. They're in house with us now. And years gone by, and we could not have asked for a better outcome. We finished 2024 with 100 members. I remember that being like my goal.
Wow.
Is to finish 2024 with 100 members. We've eclipsed 300 as of January this year. So we've grown 3x.
Dang.
And it's just been, it has not been easy. I don't want to say that. We've just been, we got this plane in the air. We continue to sail with 10,000 feet. We've scratched and clawed for every bit of it. And we've tried to do the right things and do right by people.
And we're still learning, Taylor. But that's also the beautiful part about it. Like, you're still learning.
Oh yeah.
Excuse me. You're still trying to figure this out. And just to still see, like, hey, even though we're scratching and clawing, like, we're learning how to walk as a toddler, right? Like,
yeah.
We're still moving.
Yeah.
And I think that's big within itself, you know.
I'm reading this book called We Who Wrestle with God. It's by Jordan Peterson. And he talks specifically about, one thing that you can't neglect is the journey itself. He was like, because regardless, you'll get to the summit and there's just always going to be a mountain to climb. But that's part of the beauty of life. That's the adventure.
Yeah.
Right. And also taking a look back at, look how far I've come.
Because you can be easy. That's been the biggest thing for me, is to be able to look back, like, or sharing situations across my way, and like the old me wants to just act, right? And I'm like, whoa, like, slow down. But also to catch myself in those moments and to be like, whoa, like, there's some growth there. Because the old Josh would have just popped off, or, you know what I mean? Or I would just have disassociated myself, and then it's done.
Yeah.
So to be able to look back and to see how far you come along two mountains ago, like, whoa, dang, like,
yeah. Well, that's part of the fun. It really is. I've come to the understanding that, you know what, you can hit one summit. The fun is actually in the climb. The fun is in all times of you stumble and you go, man, that sucked. And you keep going, this fun is being with your friends, and doing cohorts and just being part of it.
And I think that's like, I mean, walking, like, that's been the thing. Like, there's a new guy that joined us, and he's a bigger guy. He's been in the back and, quite far ways back. And I look at him and I'm like, I remember being there. Like, I remember being that guy. Like, this sucks. Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
And now, like, I'm in the front, you know what I mean? Like, but it's just, you see things, right? Like, and it's lonely at times, and all you got is you and your feet out there, and you're like, well, it's 3 miles back to my car. That, you're like, what am I going to do? But now, like, after you're done with it, like, it all makes it worth it. And, man, that felt good. You know what I mean? Like, it sucks. My legs, my calves are fire and boulders, but it felt good.
Yeah.
And that's definitely kind of been, I could definitely see that for sure. Well, before we enter, we did this thing a while back, and they're called what do they call?
They look like Cards Against Humanity.
It calls substance. Okay. So basically, it asks three questions. I kind of just pulled three random questions. It says, first one we'll go with is, what one song symbolizes you?
One song that symbolizes me. Oh gosh. You know what? This is going to sound crazy because I know what I look like, but I have a deep appreciation for Florence and the Machine and The Dog Days Are Over.
Really?
It's like a fast pace, high intensity, high beat. Yeah. I'm a nerd too, so it's embedded in one of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And the phrase "The Dog Days Are Over" to me just is that feeling of being like, you know how it is when you let your dogs out in the morning and they go running and they're stoked, right? Like that stuff's behind us. Let's go. Let's leave that. You know what I mean? Like that conquering, that escape. That's what it gives me. That's like the vibe it gives me. Like, okay, the dog days are over. The hardest part of this journey is over. Now we get to look forward to whatever's next. I like that. There's just something intrinsically I enjoy about that. So
I like that.
yeah, I do.
Let's see. The next one is, what piece of advice you received that really stayed with you?
Piece of advice that I received that really stayed in me. I think probably, and this is something I've taken from the 4 agreements more recently, I'm just going to rely on something that's more recent, is not to take things personal. I think that more often than not, let's say you get cut off in traffic, right? Your initial inclination is to be like, what did that, you do like knee-jerk reaction, like, yeah, that guy's a problem with me. And then you go and you pull it next to him and it's just some idiot texting, right? It's never anything personal, whether it's in business or in life. Very few people were out there with malicious intent. There are some. There are some of those people. Yeah. But more often than not, it's just people being aloof, people being unaware, people with their own motivations. They're doing things for different reasons.
You also don't know what he's texting back. That too. What if he just found out his dad's notion?
Or and he's done with something, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Maybe it's something serious. Yeah. Maybe he's got a crazy girlfriend, right? He needs to be home right now because otherwise he'll be held to pay.
He needs that Big Mac.
Yeah, maybe he needs a Big Mac, right? He's texting his DoorDash driver.
No, I think that's definitely a good one. Is don't take things personal. Because one thing I notice is how people act out is really how they feel about themselves, and that's probably been one of the biggest things I learned, to be able to be like, he's not mad at me, he's not mad at me in the situation we're in, he's mad, you know what I mean? Like, he's probably dealing with something inside his out. Yeah. And I definitely think that's a good one. Last one is what is something you've done that made your younger self proud?
I think a personal sense of security. I think being comfortable with who I am. This is something that I didn't really get into, but when I was a young coach, when I was an intern specifically, I remember interning and feeling very subservient to the people I was working with. I'll never forget. Like, I got to this place where I always felt like I was being judged or chastised by the words that were coming out of my mouth, or the inflection that I used, or whatever, being in mixed company, right? And yeah. I also felt very much like, against less than chastised. I'd often get remarked, or I get made fun of because of my physique and my appearance and just who I am. People often will assume that I'm just a big, bumbling idiot, which may be true sometimes. But nonetheless, they don't think that I'm educated. They think this guy just likes to lift weights and that's his whole MO. Maybe if I didn't want that assumption, maybe I should stop lifting the weights. But in case, I remember it really hurt me from a psychological standpoint because I never felt like I could do anything right. To give you a little bit more context, I had just come out of college. I was a college captain in everything that I've ever been on. I had just gotten a degree. I had a decent little career going, but in this workplace, I was like bottom of the totem pole out of nowhere. I wasn't as familiar with being there, And I also wasn't as familiar with being thrown the mop bucket, being like, go clean that intern. Hey, you're just another intern. I remember being told that by one of the senior coaches. Hey, man, I was trying to help him set up an FMS, which is a movement screen, because I knew how to do it. And he goes, don't worry about that right now. And I go, hey, Anthony, like, I'm just trying to help, man. He goes, and I told him, I've been around, I've done this. Like, I don't know if they've told you who I am or like any of that stuff. Not that not who I am matters, but like, I know the ins and outs of what's going on here. He goes, the only thing they told me is that you're just another intern and that's how you're going to be treated. And I was like, all right, that's where we're at. And again, I'm like the ripe old age of 24, 25 at this point. I'm like, okay. And I noticed that just again and again and again, it was like, I'd be lifting something heavy, right? And one of the senior coaches would come up and say that I was doing it all wrong or my technique was off or if I wasn't hitting this, and this threshold. And it was a way to kneecap me a little bit, like what I was doing wasn't impressive and here's why. I started to take some of my autonomy in my industry. Yeah. Started to think like, man, maybe I'm not all I cracked up to be. It really, really messed with my psyche. And again, it got to the point where I couldn't address people. And I've had to retrain myself to do this, to look people in the eye. I had a hard time addressing like my superiors by looking in the eye. I remember getting a lot of anxiety like that. People were having anxiousness, they get like blemished on their neck. I guarantee I had that because when I would talk to people, I would just be like, God, am I going to say the wrong thing? And again, like me being who I am, like that's so out of character, but it's like I was indoctrinated for 3 or 4 months. Like, you better learn to get along. You better learn to be better.
Play nice.
Yeah, all the time. And that stuck with me for a long time. And it took a long time for me when I was kind of off on my own to get out of that and to figure that out. And now full circle being in the position that I'm in right now. Yeah, of course, my bedside manner is probably a little bit better than when I first got out of college, right? Offensive lineman in college. This locker room mentality is a little different. I'm probably have a little bit softer demeanor, just generally speaking. But I also understand the fact that, man, it's okay that you're not everybody's cup of tea. It's okay that you don't always get along in every room. It's okay that you don't like certain things or you're with certain things as long as you have your heart in the right place. Like those things I've kind of, I think I've
at least became okay with it.
Yeah, definitely. Now, there are people that don't like me for reasons I don't even know. Like probably even people I haven't met. Like there are people who take issue with me and I've never met them or really talked to them in my life, or I can't even point to a place where I might have slided that way. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like I wish I could fix that, but I don't know. It's not my responsibility, And so being comfortable in my own skin, I think is one that I'm pretty proud of.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Before we end, you have anything to say to the people? Any message?
Oh man. This is the Oscar speech. This is the Oscar speech. Get my notes out. No, I just wanted to say thank you guys, of course, for having me on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to communicate my message, whatever message that was today.
Yeah.
And then also, of course, thank you to my wife, my kiddo, everyone that supports me, the greater Transcend community, if you want to call it that, all the athletes and parents who have entrusted us with their kids, all the adults who work with us on a daily basis. And I just want to let everybody know, my sole belief is that everybody can turn the corner, everybody can change. And that's what this podcast seems to be about. And, we've gotten a little bit into the details of who I am and where I'm from, but I certainly feel as though I'm an emblem of the ability to change, not just physically, but internally. And I think everybody else out there, don't drill yourself out and don't say that it couldn't be you, because it can.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you for coming on. I know it was a little bit of not a really short notice. It was pretty quick, it was pretty quick. I appreciate you. Great story, I know you, but I didn't know, the real you actually from the associations, so yeah. I appreciate that. I appreciate the conversation. It was definitely cool. And remember, we are chosen to change. You have the moment to change as well. We'll see you next week. Peace.